Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. Last week we discussed my 5 best games to have ran. God, there needs to be a better way of phrasing that. Answers down below, please, in the comments. The best games I've run? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, this video isn't that. This video is my favourite games that I've played. They're not favourite. The best games I've played. There we go, that's it. The best games I've played whenever. Not very good with titles. I'll work on that. So, last time we landed on Slay Industries, The World Below, Vampire the Dark Ages, Eclipse Phase, and Cult Divinity Lost, focusing very heavily on horror. I clearly enjoy running horror more than anything else, despite my loving to deviate into They Came From time to time. But as a... God, there were so many They Came From games I should have mentioned in that last video. They Came From the Billiard Room with the Candlestick would have really fit in there, because I ran it at the UK Games Expo, and that may have been the perfect They Came From group. Just absolutely perfect. For 3 hours, nothing but laughter with an air of horror. But we've missed our chance now, so sorry. If you want to pick up a copy of They Came From the Billiard Room with the Candlestick, buy They Came From the RPG Anthology. I'll try and remember to post it in the video description below. I'd love more people to buy that book, by the way. Not enough people have. It's got 11 different They Came From genres in it, and all of them are playable, and all of them are crossover compatible as well. So do pick up They Came From the RPG Anthology. But I didn't play They Came From the Billiard Room with the Candlestick. What I have played in that I enjoyed the most, that I thought was the best, as asked by 3D Uranium, someone who purchased a copy of The World Below in hard copy and has yielded these questions. Because if you pick up The World Below in hard copy, you can contact me through MatthewDawkins.com, tell me, and request a video of your choosing. Well, this is a more difficult one, because I'm not a good player. What I mean by that, it doesn't mean I'm disruptive. It doesn't mean I'm an arsehole. Well, I mean, both of those may be true, but I don't think so. It doesn't mean I'm bad with rules. I'm not a rules lawyer, and I'm not ignorant to rules either. It means I get bored easily. Whether this is an ADHD thing, I don't know. I think it's more that as a GM, I know that I have the opportunity to play 100 different characters. It means I get to react to every single player. It means I get to tell a story, and I get to see other people's reactions. It means that I am constantly in the spotlight. But more than anything else, as a GM, it means that I get to entertain other people, and I like entertaining other people. That's part of the reason I run my Patreon. Yes, I charge for it, but I love the ability to make other people happy or scared or engaged. And as a player, that doesn't scratch that same itch for me, to the point that there are times that I can say I absolutely disliked playing with no fault to the GM or the game in question. It just is not my headspace. People complain about being perpetual GMs. Make me the perpetual GM. I will be happy. That's not to say there haven't been occasions where there's been characters that I've really wanted to create, but they very rarely tend to live up to the concept, which is why I've often said character creation is one of the most fun parts of any RPG. Everyone loves putting their ideas down on paper. It's when they get rolled out in practice that you realise how flawed that character is going to be, and how unfun it will be to play them in a party of their peers. But, you know, I scratched my head, I thought about it, and I think I've come up with 5 different games that I really enjoyed playing in. The best games I've played in, whenever, as mentioned earlier. Starting with Curseborn. Now, as with The World Below, I speak about Curseborn an awful lot on this YouTube channel, speaking purely pragmatically, I need Curseborn to do well. I want Curseborn to do well. It is one of my major jobs to work on Curseborn, therefore I naturally promote Curseborn. However, there's more to it than that. I really enjoy Curseborn. It's a palate cleanser after working for so long on the World of Darkness. It has been creatively rewarding to come up with so many ideas and be able to put them in with creative freedom instead of editing oversight from someone who controls a license. As an author, Curseborn's been great fun. As a story guide, because I'm running lots of Curseborn, that's been great fun. But as a player, what I discovered was this is a game that really speaks to me as a player. It gives me the freedom I need to not feel shackled to a archetype. It gives me the world that I want to explore in the way of liminalities and feuding families, in the monstrosities and mysteries and so forth. But most of all, it gives me a lovely root concept to build a character out of. And I've been playing a Shade in a campaign of Curseborn that's been running for about 3 months now. And it's not being recorded, I hate to tell you, but it has been really quite freeing, and it's cemented in my mind. I've been wanting to play a Shade for a while, ever since writing them initially when they were still called the Tenebrae. I really loved the idea of a poetic justice, ironic death kind of undead, or one of the dead, who focuses on guilt, who focuses on shame, who focuses on targeting those people who either have unfulfilled potential or have committed a crime that's and never been punished for it. So there is a Punisher, there's a superhero kind of aspect to it, except this character is very sardonic, very sarcastic, very me. And playing him, and yeah, there's some rather archetypal factors to this Shade. He has that private detective, washed out, hard-boiled appearance to him. Always seems to be dripping, leaving a trail of water from his brown raincoat. And all of that has been great to play. I've enjoyed it a huge amount, but not just from an archetypal level, but because the game I've been playing in has allowed me to investigate mysteries that have genuinely been enthralling and given me the agency to actually visit the punishments or just rewards on perpetrators that my character feels are appropriate, while occasionally giving me glimpses into providing mercy, even though mercy doesn't satisfy my character. That while the punishment may fit the crime, I think this is an occasion where I need to go without amplifying emotion, satisfying my damnation. Instead, I'm just going to let this person go with a warning, with a lesson, knowing that if they fuck up, I will be coming back for them and revisiting it fivefold. Yeah, it's just been a brilliant campaign set in London. A very murky, gothic London, even though it's modern, it's drenched in mood. And I've just thought, yeah, this is a Curseborn campaign that has really spoken to me. And I'm in this story with a small crew of characters. We have a Hyde, so from the Primal family. It's a woman who has been basically trying to augment her body repeatedly, not in the ways you're thinking. She was an athlete before she was accursed, and was constantly doping up, treating her body like it was some kind of machine, and didn't really notice until the wheels started falling off, and then she experienced her change into a Hyde, and now all of a sudden all these drugs in her system have basically formed part of this curse, and she's a lot of fun. Again, very self-injurious, I suppose, is a word, if it is. And we also have an outcast in our group, a Battleground Angel. And this is the funny thing, every single Curseborn game I've ever ran or played in, there has been a Battleground Angel. They are the most popular family I have come across, which is really interesting to me. And he is played very much along the Fallen Angel line. as in he did something terribly wrong and he is trying to atone for it. But in order to do so, he needs to basically send monsters and other banished entities back to the outside and maybe win the favor of God or the angels that sent him down. Very straightforward archetype, but the player plays them so well. And as a trio, we've been having a lot of fun with that. So yes, Curseborn is number 1. Monster Kingdoms is number 2. It's been a little while since I've spoken about Monster Kingdoms on this channel. Ever since the crowdfunder ended, you know, often when crowdfunders take a lot of time and energy. And often when they end, as an author, you need to kind of step back for a while. Again, like I mentioned about They Came From, get a palate cleanser, work on something different. Monster Kingdoms has been a little different. I've been playing it in the background, on and off. This hasn't been a regular group. But we've been playing a really interesting game set in the Kingdom of Creor. And the reason I put this as one of the best games I've played in is the mood. Creor feels like the most underlyingly horrific settings I have ever experienced in a game. And I've played and ran Cult and World of Darkness and Planescape and various places where you may go to torture realms. Creor isn't a place where they're just bodies lining the street, though there are in some parts of it. It's not just that you're being hunted by undead everywhere you go if you aren't undead, and even if you are, that's no getting off scot-free. It's that everyone you interact with could become a predator. Everyone is eyeing the next person as a potential lunch. If things go bad for you and you become a vampire, well, how long before you turn on your family? How long before you turn on your neighbor? How long before you join the armies of the undead and start going to war with someone else? And that kind of paranoia has been constant through our Monster Kingdoms campaign, and I have never before experienced a persistent feeling of paranoia. Usually these things fade away once you get used to the game, but perhaps because it's an irregular game, every time we go back into it, there's just another layer of paranoia, of duplicity, of the possibility of being betrayed. And we said up front to each other, you don't have to play Monster Kingdoms like this, by the way. We said up front that because we are playing monsters, because we are self-serving characters, there may come a time where we betray each other for personal gain. And we agreed upon this. So there is always the possibility that we may do that. But what has happened in the background to kind of pull that possibility away is Creor's collapse. I mentioned in a Monster Kingdoms themed video some months ago that Creor is one of the kingdoms in Monster Kingdoms that is most likely to undergo a significant change soon. If you look at the Monster Kingdoms map and look at each of the kingdoms dotted around it and think which ones are stagnant and which ones are about to change, Creor is about to change. Because between the vampires, the mortals, the Hemexi, who used to be on a leash, so that the vampires think, but no longer, the revenants, the flesh eaters, it is a kingdom that is about to implode. The predators have been predators for too long, and now the prey is starting to wake up. And then you've got the uncontrollable bug-like vampiric horde of the Hemexi. That civil war has begun in our game. And it has left such an impact on me as a player. I've enjoyed it so much that we've got a Monster Kingdoms Jumpstart adventure being written right now by the incredibly talented Tom Murr. And basically the outline I put together for Tom is set in Creor. This is going to be an undead kingdom-based adventure to introduce you to Monster Kingdoms with a few elements of this campaign. It's one of those rare times, and I try not to do this, where I put material from my home games into published material, because I think it's very easy as an author to experience something as a player, as a GM, and think, wow, that's fantastic, but just because it's fantastic for you in that moment doesn't mean it'll be fantastic for anyone else. This is an exception to that. So Monster Kingdoms is up there as well. Next up, and this one's going to be a surprise, Shadowrun. Many years ago now, and this game sticks with me because despite the age, it was excellent. I played in a game of Shadowrun which had every reason for going off the rails early. and it was my fault. We started in the city of Seattle. This was the first time this GM had ran Shadowrun, and we were supposed to basically be monitoring an exchange between one corporation and one gang and ensuring nothing went wrong. Now, instead of doing that, we assassinated the parties involved and we took the MacGuffin. This was not what the GM intended. And what's more, because he made it very clear to us that Seattle would be hostile to us, there would be no way for us to survive, we decided we would bug out of the city. Out of Night City and down south. And so we decided we would take this MacGuffin, which was basically, for all intents and purposes, a cred stick with an inordinate amount of credits on it. We would take it down to Vegas. The GM hadn't planned this at all. This was not part of his agenda. He had planned an adventure set in Seattle. He had planned this megacorp and gang thing, and there may have been an assassination and we would have been blamed, but regardless, we fled, and the GM rolled with it. My character was an elf hacker of the Aztechnology. And so, a decker, and had various cybernetic accoutrements, but was ultimately very much into the blood practice and blood ritual. I love reading about the Aztecs, and I really wanted to incorporate that into my character, and the GM allowed it. We had an uncouth troll, basically took the floor uncouth and would just get muttering uncouth, stealing underwear and chewing it and that kind of thing. And then there were other characters in the party too. But the fact that we had to go down to Vegas and then it turned out that these credits were far too hot, we needed to find a way of basically chopping it up. And the only way we could do so was through a mafia casino. And the only way they would do it for us and take that heat was if we did favors for them of breaking into a pharmaceutical facility ran by, I can't even remember which corporation, out in the Nevada desert. And this adventure just unspooled and grew completely out of control, but was so much fun to play because the GM was giving us all this allowance, was basically coming up with fantastic ideas whenever we deviated. In a way, it was a test of the GM's ability for his first Shadowrun game that he could just keep coming up with new ideas on the fly. And he did it. He did it wonderfully, wonderfully well. I remember a point where, in order to get into this pharmaceutical facility, we needed to pass a retina scan, and obviously none of us were going to be able to. The tech was far too high for me to be able to deck into it and crack. So we decided a seduction route, and my character, well, we all basically picked a couple of employees from this pharmaceutical lab to see who could basically be hustled into giving us what we needed. My character ended up on a date with like a receptionist or security guard. I think she was a receptionist. And the date actually went really well. My character, who had very few social traits, was a charmer on this instance. There were some good dice rolls had. And I took her back to my hotel room. And everything seemed to be building up to some kind of sexual conclusion. At which point I ritually sacrificed her, gouged her eyeballs out, and hung her body over the bath to drain. The rest of the members of the party ended up finding this scene in the morning, and I explained, part of my Aztec culture. What did you expect? And we had her eyes, so we could pass the retina scan. It was only when the campaign ended that the GM said, you had succeeded charming her well enough that you could have just asked her to let you in, and she would have done it. Oh, yeah, we could have done that, couldn't we? And there was never the realization at the time that we could have just asked. I just killed and eye gouged. And that will stick with me forever as one of my favorite games to have played. Next up, Warhammer Fantasy. Those of you who follow Red Moon role-playing may be aware that for a long time, years even, I was playing in a Warhammer Fantasy campaign, starting with the enemy within, going all the way to, the enemy without, or whatever the campaigns are called, Power Behind the Throne, and the rest. Horned Rat, I can't remember all of them. But I played in this from beginning to end as a character by the name of Sigfrida, who was... I basically made my own life difficult in this game. If you're unfamiliar with Warhammer Fantasy, you pick what is essentially a career path, and not all career paths are made equally. What I mean by that is you have career paths that lend themselves to combat, swordsmanship, gunfire, or, firing an arquebus or whatever, bowmen, that kind of thing. You even have magicians, sorcerers, priests, and while such things may be viewed rather dimly by the Inquisition, such things exist in the game. Your archetypal playable classes. You've got your rogues, your fighters, your wizards, and while they're packaged into more flavourable terms than that, that's not what I went for. I went for a doctor, or an aspiring one, an apprentice doctor, someone who wanted to become a physician, because I like the idea of someone who could heal, someone who could poison, but not someone who was going to be on the front line of combat. Now, with this being a pre-written campaign, there was a certain expectation for combat scenes, and my character was rendered fairly useless during them. And so this left me quite often during the campaign, through no fault of Craig, the GM's decision-making, or indeed the campaign as written. It left me somewhat useless and feeling a bit disappointed and feeling like, well, I should have created a different character. But then I would get to the city scenes, the interaction scenes, the chances where I could play my character as a character, not just as stats on a sheet. And she was probably one of the most rewarding character arcs I got to play. Someone who kept dabbling in chaos, maybe drifting off because she wanted increasing knowledge. She came from nothing and she wanted to become something despite not having any money to put her in that place, or benefactor. And so she ended up with very dubious benefactors and money from some very dubious places. And each time she took one of these leaps, it seemed to punish her. But it all built to this character growth. I have almost mixed feelings looking back at that campaign, because there were times where I was feeling, I think, a bit miserable about Sigfrida as a character. And note that of all of the characters I'm speaking about here, she's the only one I'm really naming, because I think she became probably the most realistic character despite existing in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. Because she wasn't strong. She wasn't going to wade through an army of orcs or goblins or Skaven. She was going to survive by the skin of her teeth, and often did. And yet, by the end of that campaign, I could look back and say, wow, that was one hell of a character journey. And there were highs and there were lows for me. But for me, in a way, that is also important. I could play a game like Monster Kingdoms that is non-stop paranoia, which isn't necessarily what we advertise Monster Kingdoms as, but is for this campaign. I could advertise Curseborn and say that, for me, my shade that I'm playing right now is just constant engagement, mystery, fun, stereotypical play. And Shadowrun I could describe as non-stop fun, as a sort of gonzo out there messing around campaign. This wasn't non-stop fun, but it was a very strong story. And I could not take that away. I would not change that. I can't think I wish I hadn't spent my time playing that, because I genuinely think it was some of the best play that I got out of myself, while also hammering home why it is that I run games more than play them. So it was a good learning experience for me, and in a way I would say that one of the best things to come out of Warhammer Fantasy, and it sounds like a criticism and it isn't, because I do think that the game is a really strong one. I think the campaign is a really good one. It's a famously legendary campaign, and I think Craig did a great job running it. It made me comfortable with the fact that I prefer GMing. I think historically I would have chosen to play out of a feeling like GM. Everyone needs a chance to GM, so I should just sit back and play once in a while. And there were times when I would go to conventions and think, well, I'm not running anything, I should play something. Even though inevitably halfway through the game I'd want to get up and go to the bar. Not because the games are bad, just because that's my nature. And I'd feel guilt about that, or shame about that. The sort of thing that my Shade in Curseborn would pick up on. But now, I don't feel bad. I'm very much at ease with the fact that, by and large, I just want to run games. And I'm happy with that. I'm good with that. And if someone offers me a chance to play in a game, more likely than not, I'm just going to say no. Either because of availability, quite literally, I don't have the time, or because I am not the kind of person who's going to enjoy it. There will be someone out there who gets a lot more out of this experience than I will, so give it to them. And the last one I'm going to provide you with, out of games that I think have been fantastic with me as a player, I'm going to go for Vampire the Masquerade. I'm going to go for the Chicago by Night scenario, the Sacrifice, ran on Red Moon Role-Playing again, where I was playing alongside, I want to say, Yalmar and Craig. And Clara was running. And this was a game where I got to play a gloves-off, nasty piece of work, ministry, setite. Lots of people said, oh, this person feels like more like a Toreador, and God, I hate that. It's like when people post photos of themselves, and which clan am I? You could be any fucking clan. Most clans don't embrace people just based on the fact that they're wearing eyeliner. I mean, you know, there's the Toreador, obviously. But, yes, the the story of the Sacrifice became kind of secondary to the journey my character went on in that. And I think the reason I really appreciated it, and I appreciated the storyteller, and I appreciated my fellow players, was even though we were still chasing down the plot of the Sacrifice, the La Sombra delegation that arrives in Chicago, creates all kind of hell, and at the end of it you've got to vote as to whether the La Sombra are going to find a place in the Camarilla of Chicago. That was all there. All those building blocks were there, those things that I co-authored and developed from Chicago by Night with Clara, and it was wonderful to experience Clara running them. But the thing that really stood out for me was the fact that she, as the storyteller, allowed me to do so much with my character's touchstone. I love, in a game, to explore a certain mechanic. If I'm playing or if I'm running, I will often look in a game before I pick it up and, well, before I start running it, and I'll think, let's really explore this in this session. It's like I don't like in Curseborn to go through the Bloodthirst every single session, despite the fact I wrote the rule for having Bloodthirst every single session. I don't use Curse dice in every single dice pool. Nor, with Vampire the Masquerade, do I make people do hunger rolls every single time. And the reason is because, as a GM, you want to do things that are dramatically, narratively appropriate and not just hit people over the head with drudgery and bureaucracy. These things are exciting when dropped at the right moment. And what this game did was give me, as a player, a real fun exploration of a vampire's relationship with his touchstone and the kind of brainwashing and love bombing and gaslighting that my character Dolph was prepared to basically drown his touchstone in to make sure she never left him. Ada, I think her name was. It was a particularly nasty character to play. But at no point did I feel punished for playing that character. I think it was the perfect setting for him. And so, yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And it was the right length for me as well for a campaign. It wasn't too long, it wasn't too short. It engaged me and then stopped. And that was what was necessary. So, there you go. There's my five. My five best games as a player. Curseborn, Monster Kingdoms, Shadowrun, Warhammer Fantasy, and Vampire the Masquerade. And again, I have played so many other games that have been great. Way back when, the best game I ever played was Anima, and if I could still remember that campaign clearly, it'd probably still be up there. I played so many experimental games as well. I remember really enjoying a game of Shadowrun Anarchy I played at the Contingency Games convention over the course of about 3 days. Same with a Vampire the Masquerade game I played over IndieCon, I think it was, over the course of about 3 days. I've played in a lot, and maybe more than any of that, the best game I ever played in that first really got me to understand how great role-playing can be was Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, the first ever Call of Cthulhu campaign I played that made me realise, wow, okay, this isn't just all about hitting things and hit points. All of these stand out, but those are my 5. So thank you very much for sticking with me. I hope these have been interesting stories. As always, I will link the games I have spoken about in the video description below, and if you're interested in any of them. This time I'm going to strongly recommend you pick up a copy of Monster Kingdoms if you haven't. But overall, if you want a video like this, or a video of any kind on this channel, contact me through MatthewDawkins.com after picking up a hard copy of The World Below, which as ever is going to be linked in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching. I will be seeing you next time.